All right, everybody, thank you for coming. We'll have to speak loudly so the mics can pick us up. But I'd like to call to order the February 21st meeting of the Downtown Design Review Board. Would everyone please introduce yourselves? Or actually, we can wait a few minutes, let everybody see.
Oh. Hey, Logan.
Later.
Welcome to the center.
Yeah. All right. Jared, would you mind get settled? Start the introductions.
I'm Jared Worsham, Downtown Resident Representative.
John Thurman, Downtown Development Representative.
Laura Cole, Downtown Resident Representative.
Matthew DeBartolome, Downtown Knoxville Alliance.
Harry Childress, East Tennessee Community Design Center.
Rick Blackburn, Historic Zoning Commission.
Suzanne Taravella, Neighborhood Representative.
Josh Wright, Urban Design Representative.
Lindsay Crockett, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Dallas DeArmond, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Mike Reynolds, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Douglas Gordon, City of Knoxville Law Department.
Brian Berry, City of Knoxville, Plan Review Building Inspection.
Thank you for that. The minutes from the December 20th meeting have been distributed. Does anyone have any corrections or modifications? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And do we have any staff approvals?
Sure, so the two administrative approvals since the last meeting at 120 South Gay Street, this was a new non-illuminated projecting sign. It measures approximately 3 square feet in area. And then at 331 Cedar Avenue, this was a new secondary structure in the infill housing overlay. It is located at the rear right north corner of the property.
All right, thank you for that, Lindsay. Let's go ahead and move on into the first set of certificates of appropriateness. 1543 Connecticut Avenue, a new primary structure, 1A24IH.
Okay, so this is a new primary structure fronting Connecticut Avenue. You can see the site plan there. Yeah, and I think in terms of the applicants, if you guys want to stay seated, if you want to stand, I don't know, and we don't normally have like the podium, whatever you guys feel comfortable doing in this room is great. So this is a one-story residence with a front gable roof with a 6/12 pitch, an exterior of vinyl lap and board and batten siding, and a slab foundation. The house is 28 feet wide by 44 feet 5 inches deep and has a partial width front porch with a front gable roof on the right side. The parking, as you can see, is proposed to be located to the rear of the house and access from the alley. This will come back, surely. There we go. Just can't move. Okay, so I'm going to run through the staff comments that are associated with the conditions of approval instead of going through all of them. I'm happy to clarify on others as the discussion moves forward, but these are also all in the case file. So the proposed front setback is not clarified on the site plan. It's showed as significantly recessed from that 20 feet front setback line there. The average front setback of the block face is 20.5 feet and the adjacent house is at 16 feet. So the house should be moved towards the front property line to align with the block face. The house's facade is similar in scale and width to historic houses on the block. The house has a concrete slab foundation which should be elevated to at least 12 to 18 inches to reflect foundation heights in the context. Overall, the windows and door styles are compatible with the neighborhood context with similar proportions and ratio of solid to void. The roof pitch and the materials do meet the design guidelines. Be careful. Thank you. So the staff recommends approval of 1A24AH subject to the following conditions: that the final site plan meets city engineering standards, the front setback be revised to align with the block face, the final site plan incorporate native or naturalized shade trees in the front and rear yard, and the foundation height measure at least 12 inches to be compatible with the neighborhood context.
Thank you, Lindsay. Is the applicant here? Would they like to speak?
Yes.
So as far as setback, we were there earlier today, and that existing house is roughly 30 feet from the street edge. It's 10-foot standard to the property line, and then 20 foot back from that. We're gonna follow suit with what's there, if that's agreeable with you all.
Yeah, so I would need to compare that with the map and showing where those setbacks are. That seems fine. That's something that you'll have the capacity to update on the site plan. In this, there's a 14-day appeal period. You guys can send that to me before sending it to them.
Perfect.
Are there any other concerns with anything that Lindsay's recommending?
As far as these notes, everything seemed pretty standard. I mean, unless you all had any specific questions, we're just gonna follow with standard building practice. As far as elevations on the back side of the property, I mean, we're gonna go the 12 to 18 inches, on that back side and just make sure water travels in the same direction it already has. As far as elevation goes, we're not looking to change anything major on the site. So if you all had any further questions about it.
I want to just comment that our basis for foundation height is based more on the surrounding buildings and not on drainage. I know if you're accustomed to building outside the H1 overlay area, the only real engineering concern on your foundation height is keeping water off your floor. What we are charged with here is seeing that it follows more the pattern of the block that you're on. Looking at this picture, it looks like the ground raises toward the street here, toward the Gloria Garner Street that we're on. That
We've actually built 4 homes already.
There's a-
It's been through.
Negative grade section kind of on this front corner here. That's our lowest point, and we're going to work off that lowest point about 1 inch per 10 feet.
and that would be the highest point on your foundation.
Okay.
It's the tallest foundation, and that's adjacent to the next house, so, I think as long as the staff has recommended, we keep around 12 inches on our minimum, that you should be fine.
I think everything else is pretty much standard. As far as style of windows, grids in the windows seems to be the majority of the neighborhood. Majority of the neighborhood had various versions of vinyl siding. If you have any recommendations on what you would like to see, I mean, we're open for recommendations, ideas.
So typically what we'd like to see is what is shown in the elevation drawings.
Okay. We will follow suit with that.
So I'm just looking, just to clarify, I'm looking at the site plan, not that one, the sort of KGIS. That guy?
Mm-hmm.
This adjacent house is, you're saying it's 20 feet from the curb or this?
So the adjacent house is 16 feet from the front property line.
Okay. And you guys are saying that you'll revise the drawing to show it aligning with the face of the adjacent, okay, great. I'll make a motion to approve for this recommendation.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good evening.
You too. So now we have 2621 Barton Street, 1B2 24IH.
So this is a new rear addition. It measures 14 feet wide by 20 feet deep, and it will project from the rear right, which is the southeast corner of the house. The addition will feature a gable roof clad in asphalt shingles, and exterior of vinyl lap siding, and paired double hung windows on each side. So under the infill housing overlay, the design review board is charged with reviewing additions visible from the primary street. This one is visible from both points of Barton Street, so it'll be here. This is a large double lot, so you can see it from over on this side too. The addition meets the design guidelines for placement. It's proposed for the rear of the house. The guidelines also say that cladding, roof materials, doors, and windows should be compatible with the house. And these do reflect the existing house and the design guidelines. They've included a 9/12 roof pitch, which matches the house. So staff's recommending approval of 1B24IH as submitted.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak?
don't believe they are here.
Okay. Any discussion with the board? Anybody want to make a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Now we have 125 East Oldham Avenue, 1C24IH.
Okay, so this is another new primary residence fronting East Oldham Avenue. It is a 2-story residence with a side gable roof, a 7/12 pitch, an exterior of horizontal siding, and a concrete block foundation. The house is 18 feet 10 inches wide by 44 feet deep, and it features a full-length 7 feet 4 inches full-length shed roof porch. The parking is proposed for the rear of the property and it's accessed from the alley. This project and your application also includes a new subdivision plat to create a legal lot of record that corresponds with the tax parcel. The lot measures approximately 33 feet wide, fronting Oldham Avenue, so it's a narrow lot. Overall, the house is proposed to be set 25 feet from the front property line. That's aligned with the average of the block face. It will be compatible with the block. Along with the house's side setbacks. The house itself is proportional to the dimensions of that lot and the context of the block. The house itself is a 2-story, 3-bay facade. It is more narrow than other houses on the block, but it's proportional to that lot. It is comparable in scale to the context. The foundation height should be confirmed to be compatible in height with the other houses on the block. The final horizontal siding materials should incorporate an overlap instead of the Dutch lap or flush panel siding. The foundation should be clad in stucco or a perch coat instead of an exposed CMU. So staff's recommending approval of 1C24IH subject to the following conditions: that the site plan meet city engineering standards, the site plan incorporate a walkway to the sidewalk, and native or naturalized shade trees in the front and rear yards, and the foundation be clad in stucco or perch coat and compatible with the height with the context.
Thanks, Lindsay. Is that, with the applicant like
That's
that?
me. So I guess you can see we were kind of tasked with a tough,
Do you mind saying your name?
Yeah,
and address
Aaron
for the
Newman.
record?
we were kind of handcuffed with our lot size there. So I guess the only thing I can add to it is we're gonna do brick on the foundation.
Sir, can you give us your name and address?
Yeah. Aaron Newman, and my address is 8621 L.E.J. Way, Strawberry Plains, Tennessee, 37871.
Thank you.
Yeah, so straight lap siding, brick foundation. It should sit in line with all the other houses. So. Any other questions?
Does the board have any other questions?
No, I would describe it as a story and a half, not a full 2-story. It's got the,
Yeah.
especially, looking at the middle housing rules we're about to review that talk about what constitutes a story and a half and the setback on the dormer and all of that. So I think it fits the block all right. On this challenge of a site, it's gonna be a little tall, but it's not gonna have a 2-story face that clearly.
Right, you get the living space out of the
Masses.
dormer on the front. Yeah, just kind of blends in.
And I like how the elevation's broken up.
Yeah, it's actually a primary bedroom on the main level too. So it's 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. So it's a lot of house for that size lot.
Wow. I'll make a motion to approve with the change of the foundation being brick.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you guys.
Do you know if our lot, did it go all the way through? I know we were having it flooded. Yeah, I know we had it recorded, but I wasn't sure.
I'll make a note and look at that and I'll email you tomorrow.
Yeah, that'd be great. You just let me know the next steps and stuff.
I will.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Aaron.
Bye.
And our next group of approvals, looks like there's a series together, and Lindsay will walk us through those and how we manage that.
Yes. So this is another situation where we have 7 different applications. The applications themselves are identical. And so I will describe them and go through the findings once, and then similar to last time, we will have to vote on each of them separately, but I'll have them all laid out so we can just have that discussion one time. So these are 7 houses that are proposed for Divide Street. You can see the addresses in the case files there. I can run through them as we need, but this is a new primary structure fronting Divide Street. It has a front gable roof with a 6/12 pitch, an exterior of vinyl lap siding and brick veneer, and a slab foundation. The house has a partial width porch. It's recessed under the primary roof line, and the facade is 3 bays wide. The left side, as proposed, has no windows. The right elevation has 2 double hung windows recessed towards the rear of the house. So all 7 of these houses are proposed to be identical to the adjacent new houses, and the application has provided some renderings showing material differentiation, but we've discussed how the staff recommendation would be that we work through those and then they can submit those for permitting. So just to run through some of the findings, the house is proposed to be set 20 feet from the front property line. There is no, the block to receive new construction doesn't have other houses. The proposed front setback is appropriate for the block. The 7 houses will create a consistent streetscape. There are no houses on the block to serve as that design context. They are proportional to the dimensions of the lot and the broader neighborhood. There's no constructed alley on the property, so that proposed parking does meet the infill housing guidelines for properties without alleys. There may be modifications necessary to meet city engineering standards, and modifications may also be necessary to the street itself. The street is very narrow and unfinished. The facade is similar in scale and width to existing houses in the neighborhood. The foundation is again proposed for that concrete slab foundation, so the foundation should be elevated to at least 12 to 18 inches to reflect the broader neighborhood. The house has a recessed corner porch below the primary roof line. There's not a porch depth measurement provided in the application, but the front porches should be revised to be at least 8 feet deep to be proportional to original houses in the neighborhood. In terms of the window and door styles and proportions, the left elevation should feature at least 2 windows to be compatible with the broader context. And then finally, the proposed new construction house should be differentiated in design from the 6 other houses proposed on Divide Street, and design tactics can include roofline modifications, different porch designs, or other methods. So staff's recommending approval of this first one, 2A24IH, subject to the conditions that the final site plan meet engineering standards, the foundation be elevated to reflect the historic houses in the neighborhood, the front porches be revised to measure at least 8 feet deep, the left elevation to be revised to incorporate additional windows, and then the design be revised to differentiate with other adjacent new construction houses on Divide Street, and that could be approved by staff.
Thank you, Liz. Would the applicant like to speak?
Yeah, so William, if you're on Zoom, you can unmute yourself and we should be able to hear you.
He's just not talking.
Is he unmuted?
No, he's still muted.
William, can you unmute yourself and let us know if you wanted to add anything to Lindsay's comments?
I will say he spoke on the phone before this meeting. He was aware of the staff recommendations and was comfortable with them. He had a childcare situation to handle, so he said he was going to listen on Zoom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, if he's comfortable with your recommendations, does the staff have anything else? The board have anything else to say about?
A comment about the site and how the elevations are drawn perfectly flat. I don't know the nature of the site, but it feels like in that picture that there's some terrain there to negotiate.
Yes, there is.
So I have a concern with them getting an approval without any more detail about how the foundation will be handled.
I was gonna say the same thing, I agree.
I would put one of my usual comments in terms of mirroring several of them to pair the driveways, which gives you more green space. By putting the driveways together, then you have 2 yards together that really breaks up this just driveway pattern down the street there. It's not very pedestrian friendly, not that anyone's gonna be walking anywhere on Divide Street. It dives into the mountain here on the side of Sharps Ridge.
Yes.
And this really is an isolated, this neighborhood is one to itself up there, so it does not have a lot of context really to deal with, but just in the regular urban design preferences, it would be nice if they could flip a few of them and pair those driveways up and get us a little bigger yard.
Okay, I'll make sure that suggestion is passed along.
For the foundations, is that something that we could let Lindsay have a look at? Like, cause I agree with you, those need to be analyzed better, but if it fits within that 12 to 18 inches that we normally have, that would be okay, or do you think they need to come all the way back to us?
I mean, I'll just speak, personally, I think there's parts of, I trust Lindsay, but also there's just a lot that we need to look at. We're doing a whole block here, or a half block in some capacity. The elevations don't seem to be addressed in any way. We've had applicants have to come back because that's not properly addressed. They need to show us variation in elevation. My preference would be to ask them to come back. I mean, they're gonna have to show that to Lindsay anyways. So if it was a one quick thing, I would say, let's, I don't see a problem, but in my opinion, there's multiple things and it's gonna take some time, so I don't see them rushing into this tomorrow without needing to come back and prepare some elevation work and some site plans. That's my feeling. I wish that's my preference.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree, there's 7 of them.
Yeah, and I especially the variation that they're gonna apply to these is important.
Some of the
I agree.
variations they suggested, I didn't care much for.
I know, we discussed that as well.
Okay.
I make a motion that we postpone this one until next meeting, until they're able to come back and address the elevation, foundations and the variation of facades.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
We
Motion
need to do that
passes.
6 more
So you're gonna
times.
need to do that 6 more times.
Oh, yeah.
I'll put the case numbers
Can I
already
just-
on the screen.
Yeah. Can I make one motion for all case numbers?
If you read Doug, are you comfortable with that, if he reads the case numbers?
Yeah, I'm
Individual.
Okay, I've got them right here. Okay, I make a motion for, case numbers 2A 24-IH, 2B 24IH, 2C 24IH, 2D 24IH, and 2E 24IH, and 2F 24IH. That we postpone. Oh, and G. Oh my goodness. Oh, yeah, sorry. 2G 24IH. We postpone till next meeting to where the applicant will return addressing the foundation, how the foundation meets the grade and variation in the facade.
And the windows on that left side.
Yes,
Windows and porch.
including all other staff recommendations. Thank you.
I'll second
For
that.
all the above.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Now we have 3527 Oswald Street, 8G23IH.
So I have your full application packet. I'm gonna go through the elevation drawings and stuff, so if there's additional stuff in here you want shown when you're talking, just let me know. So this is a new multifamily building. We last saw this at the August 2023 Design Review Board meeting. This is part of a broader mixed-use development on an approximately 8-acre property in Lincoln Park. It previously held manufacturing facilities and other industrial uses. The property is zoned now IMU, industrial mixed use. It'll allow for compatible commercial, single-family, residential, and multifamily residential uses. So those 3 single-family houses have been constructed on the property. That's what's shown right here for context. And so what we are looking at again, that we last saw in August, is this building that's C-shaped. It's 2 and 3 stories tall. It features a flat roof and an exterior clad in brick and metal panel or fiber cement siding and a brick clad foundation. This is a C-shaped building that wraps around the 3 single-family houses. There's 1 2-story massing on the north side of the houses, and a 2-story massing on the west side of the houses, and one on the south side, there's a 2-story massing with a recessed 3rd-story penthouse. So I'll go through some of the comments, but this application was postponed at the August meeting. Revisions to the design include minor modifications to the building footprint and revisions to setbacks. The buildings have been moved closer to the street. They will now align with the single-family houses. The roof line of the 3rd-story penthouse has also been modified, and then window placement on some secondary elevations has been modified. And I'll let the applicant clarify further modifications from the previous design. Just to speak to some of the comments, the new building will be aligned in the general front setback with the single-family houses on the block. The facades will continue the new streetscape along Oswald Street that has been created by those houses. It'll reflect that existing front yard space and the 2 existing houses on the south end of the block. There are walkways provided. Actually, those walkways have been, there's front sidewalks there, and then there are walkways, that's a driveway. I'm gonna let you clarify on that. So the guidelines recommend that in terms of multifamily housing, the infill housing guidelines recommend that they're proportional to the dimensions of the lot and the other houses on the block. They also note that multifamily housing should be comparable in height to traditional single-family houses along the street. The multifamily form does necessitate an increase in height from that 1-story minimal traditional and Queen Anne cottage that are present on that block. A 2-story building won't detract from the overall streetscape or neighborhood context. They will be comparable in height to the existing new construction single-family houses. That 3rd-story penthouse is recessed from the primary roof line to reduce the visual impact. The interior, rear, and side setbacks from the single-family houses are relatively narrow, as you can see. Site plan revisions may be necessary to meet fire separation standards that would depend building code input from plans review and inspections. Corner side setbacks in this initial phase of construction may also differ from the IMU Build 2 zones. So these are elements that will be worked out in permitting, and if major revisions to the site plans are made, they would come back in front of the board. Parking is noted as a proposed future parking lot located south of the building, separated by a future building, so you can see that down here. Any parking area immediately adjoining Oswald Street should incorporate landscaping and screening from the street as necessary. The final site plan should meet city engineering standards, and revisions may require further staff or board review. This building is larger in height and scale than the surrounding neighborhood context as a multifamily structure. It does incorporate projecting bays and covered stoops to break up the facade and the side elevation massings into proportions that are compatible with the houses. Those are guidelines for multifamily in the infill housing right now. They also recommend that they continue that architectural rhythm of the block. So in addition to having the same build to line, the porches, bays, and breaks in the front facade should be created to mimic the look of older houses when looking down the block. That's from the guidelines. And they also recommend dividing the building into separate sections that are proportionally similar. These curved projecting bays do help create massings that are similar to the single family houses. The predominant exterior materials include brick veneer and metal panel or fiber cement siding, which do meet the guidelines. The guidelines note that vertical siding and other non-historic materials should not be used. The applicant should provide final specifications for the brick or metal panel or fiber cement to staff for approval in advance of permitting. So the staff recommendation here is to approve 8G23IH subject to the conditions that the final site plan and parking areas meet engineering standards. Any parking areas fronting Oswald Street receive landscaping and screening to meet the guidelines. Final drawings meet the standards of the IMU zone and principal use standards for multifamily dwellings. And then specs for the final materials be submitted to staff for approval.
Thank you. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. So, quick overview as to why it's, Logan Higgins, 133 South Gay Street. Quick overview for why we're now, I think 8 months later, coming back with this. After we postponed last month to meet with the neighborhood, we met with the neighborhood. It was overwhelmingly positive. A lot of people were very excited about the project. And then after that meeting, we decided, we had a little bit of time. We started pricing things out, started looking into maybe doing the adjacent building closer to the parking first. And so that's why we were like, let's figure this out, draw that building up, and then decide, before going back to DRB decide which one we're gonna do. We're gonna stick with this one, so that's why we're back now. One note, I think that the occupancy will technically be townhouse. I don't think that will have any impact on staff's report, but multifamily was referenced. Changes from when we were last year, and mostly based off the discussion that we did have. On the front elevations, there was a question about the height related to the houses, because it kind of seemed like we were building these up. It's twofold. One, we realized that our previous packet, the houses were sitting lower than they are in reality. And then two, in order to have a ADA-friendly walking path behind this building that can connect to the street, it's a few feet above, and these need to be kind of the same floor elevation. So they're raised a little bit because of their overall depth. But overall, they still sit within a foot or two of the existing houses that are there, height-wise, or floor level-wise at least. And then, like Lindsay said, we brought it a little closer to the street, kind of resolved some of those issues. And there was a comment about the thin brick. We had noted that we intended to use thin brick, but we went ahead and changed it to regular brick because of the concerns with water on that. So really that's kind of the overview of the changes. Happy to answer any questions that anyone has. So, thanks.
Do we have any questions or comments from the board?
Logan, just to make sure I understood on that site plan. Okay, you're proposing what you've got in gray, right?
Yes.
I'll look at the packet.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought I heard something about moving to towards the parking.
Yeah, that was a discussion.
Oh, okay,
in
that's
the
not
fall,
happening, okay.
And we're gonna keep that later.
Okay.
Will the streetscape be done at the same time? The sidewalks, other things?
Most likely, we need to work that out with engineering, whether they'll want us to do it all at once or go ahead and do it in pieces. We want to avoid trying to do what's in front of the other building because it will probably eventually get damaged in construction. So we'll work that out with them.
On the elevations, the vertical striated pieces, are those the metal panels?
Yes.
What's going on behind the houses? What is that?
Where her
that-
pointer is?
Yeah, well, so that's an opening. Is that just a floor of living?
So those are kind of like cottages, cottage units. And so if you, like the vertical panels in that middle elevation, each of those are two of the units. So they have like little spiral staircase. They're under 500 square feet, those. So each of them have a kind of breezeway that they use as their entrance to break off between them.
So the access is between the other houses?
No, it's just in between the two units. Go up here, point. So like, there'll be a line right here. This will be one unit, this will be a unit, this will be a unit. Their front doors will be in between, like in this breezeway that's in between them. We kind of highlighted it here to show that from the street perspective, we line those up in between the existing houses. So there's kind of visual, you can see through that, and they're not necessarily walled off completely like the backyards of these houses. So, and the reason we did that is we have this walking path behind it, and then also we didn't want to have something full height behind the houses. We planned on having like lower cottages back there right in between them, and then this is actually we go back one to this site plan. So we've got our walking path here and this other building there, and we wanted kind of a visual to connect the street to the walking path, even though you can't walk through those yards of these and driveways. Wanted that connection.
Logan, do you have a drawing that can you make the site plan? I'm sorry. It's 21. The 20, page 21. There you go. Yeah, do you have an elevation that shows behind the houses facing the back of those units? Like I see in the other elevation, you see it sort of beyond. I'll get up and show you.
I know what you like, what those houses would see.
Right, yeah, if you go one slide back, you can see it here, or no, here,
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I didn't know what material that was.
that's actually
that's the same,
the middle elevation
this one, that
That's
one.
that.
that we're seeing
Okay.
there. Yeah,
Okay,
it should be that.
so this is all metal panel,
Mhm.
okay? And if you go to the site plan one more time, I'm sorry.
No.
That's what you're looking at here?
Mhm.
Okay, so that's cut through here, looking at, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
So it's kind of all metal paneling, but you're gonna modify with different, surface textures or
Yes.
colors.
And then what's going on in the little space between the buildings on the left? There's like a little sort of small courtyard. You know, the little, keep going up right to your right. The little white space at the C, the little inside of the C. Yep.
Right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's to give all of these units kind of,
Daylight.
yeah, back doors and some daylight back there.
But it's like asphalt, I mean, it's concrete or, I can't get the scale on how wide, it's like 20 feet or something, 30 feet?
No, it's probably about 15 feet.
Okay.
And so it'll be a mix of concrete and landscaping.
Cool. So the brick is all the way around where you have the sort of stepping in and out,
Mm-hmm.
and then it gets to the back and it becomes more metal panel, and then that other side is all brick, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So really the metal panel part's hidden by the alley and or behind the houses and then above the roof lines.
Yeah.
I did have one more question, I'm sort of monopolizing my time.
Yeah.
Are any of them one-story units above and below, or are they all like townhome two-story? And three and
Currently, we have a mix of both, where some of them are, all the ones that you see facing there's three facing the street, there's the cottage units, and then there's the three on the side. Those are all two-story, and then we have a section in the back corner behind the courtyard where we can have the interior where it's one level units, stairs, and then one level units above. If we switch that to be just townhouses, it won't change the exterior at all. So.
What about, I see in your precedents on the fiber cement panels, you've got the striations in your renderings or more grayscale, and then you've shown an example of some real multicolor components. Is that, I mean, I guess that's the part you have to bring back to Lindsay is the materiality, I guess, or, I mean, are you intending to do more of a like a similar color, scaled color, or is it a variation of color?
Yeah, I think
I'm looking at that
I think
page
we got
19, that one.
rendering from back there. It's kind of in line with. Yeah, you can kind of see it here. So I would really like to do more color. I am always a little nervous about being too bold with the color. So what we have right now is mostly monochromatic with color lines, vertical, like spaced out. However, as we get more into the specifications of those materials, I hope that we can get more color back there. But
I'll make a motion to approve based on staff comments.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, motion passes.
thank you all very much.
All right. Now we move into the downtown design review portion. That was a housing. Certificates of appropriateness for 430 South Gay Street, 12B 23DT.
Yes. So this has a revised proposal. This application was postponed at the December 2023 meeting. This is a sign for the ground level tenant. It's a rectangular sign with neon illumination on the text and borders. It's proposed for this transom area of the building. It's centered above the primary entry and will project outward from the building. Will be attached to the framing above and below those existing multi-light transom windows. The sign has been revised to measure 9 feet wide and 9 feet 10 inches wide by 2 feet 5 inches at the largest. The face will be slightly smaller than that. So the staff recommendation and the board action was to postpone 12B 23DT in December to allow for additional information on the sign's placement, installation, and design. And revisions should also include a reduction in size to be more proportionate to the building and storefront. So the sign is now approximately 23.75 square feet. That's revised from the proposed 26.6 square feet. The sign will still be large in size. It extends the full length of the central entryway and most of the height of the transom. The sign is a unique form and placement for historic buildings along Gay Street, and it will kind of cover those multi-light transom windows. The applicant has provided additional details on its installation, and those are documented in the staff report. It describes a 5-inch deep cabinet that will be connected to the upper and lower trim surrounding the transom window by aluminum tubes. The electrical equipment and wiring would be contained within that sign cabinet. And the sign contractor has clarified that the electrician can run that power to where the support tubes mount to hide any wiring or conduit. So staff's recommendation is to approve 12B 23DT subject to the condition that the applicant provide final drawings showing the sign's installation to staff for approval.
Thanks, Lindsay. Would the applicant like to speak?
Baker, you are on Zoom, I believe, and you can unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm unmuted. I'm here.
Great.
I think Lindsay pretty much covered it. Unless you guys have any other questions for me, I'll be glad to try to answer those.
Do you mind saying your name and address for the record, please?
Baker Jones, 2313 Craig Cove, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Thank you for that. Does the board have any questions or comments?
Move to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
So we got a motion and a second to approve per staff recommendations. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. So now we have 111 East Jackson Avenue, 2A24DT.
This is an illuminated projecting sign. It's 3 feet in diameter and it features internal illumination via LEDs. So the illumination here is limited to the white lettering and logos on a black background. The sign will be approximately 10 feet, 9 feet 6 inches above the sidewalk level. The sign package also includes vinyl door signs to be installed on those full light doors. So overall, the sign meets design guidelines as it is a projecting sign of 9 square feet located above the business's entryway. The internal illumination means that it is required to be approved by the board and not by staff. The internal illumination will be limited to those white letters and logo and not to be illuminated through the back. So staff's recommending approval of 2A24DT as submitted.
Thank you, Lindsay. Would the applicant like to speak?
This is Baker again, and this is also my application, and I think that Lindsay covered this one as well, unless you all have any questions.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second
Any opposed, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, motion passes.
Okay, thank you all.
So now we have 555 West Jackson Avenue.
It's
Two-
John. It's John.
No, yeah, you're right, John.
John was the first. I edged in for second.
Okay.
Let the record reflect that.
The concept's free.
We got it, all right. 555 West Jackson Avenue, 2B24DT.
Okay, so this is a window replacement project at the Southeastern Glass Building. So the applicants are proposing to replace windows on floors 2, 4, and 5 of this building. The existing are the original multi-light steel windows with operable 4 or 6 light awning windows. The exterior trim and stills will be retained. Proposed replacement windows are single light aluminum storefront windows with a surface applied muntins and rails that will be applied on the interior and the exterior. 28 of them will feature the fixed windows with the transoms below, and then 6 are 42 inches wide by 22 inches tall operable transoms. The project also includes the installation of new metal lintels above the windows, along with repointing of the exterior brick. So the Southeastern Glass Building is a contributing resource to the Southern Terminal and Warehouse Historic District. So the Historic Resources section of the guidelines applies. The applicant has noted, and I'll let you clarify, that the intent is to replace all of the windows at the same time. However, the windows belong to each unit owner, and individual owners may not replace all of the windows simultaneously. This application is requesting approval for the windows to be replaced on an as-needed basis. The building was constructed in the 1920s, so these steel windows are original to the structure. The application notes that they are deteriorated, and the concern that the installation of the new metal lintels on the interior would cause the window frames and panes below to break. The guidelines recommend if repairs are not possible, then replace with matching windows, including duplicating design, operation, material, glass size, muntin arrangements, profile, and trim. So the proposed replacement windows will vary in design. They will, in material, they'll use a surface applied grid, and then profiles. So these surface applied exterior muntins are typically more thin than steel muntins. There's an example of the replacement windows on the Whole Dogs building where Axle Logistics currently is, as an example. Those are surface applied muntins that kind of create 3 adjoining sort of fixed light windows there. So to align those proposed new windows with the originals as much as possible, the applicant or contractor should submit a profile drawing of those muntins. The profile should replicate the existing in thickness and projection from the window. You can see here they are substantial. And then the framing should reflect the existing in width if at all possible. All exterior trim and sills should be repaired and retained or replaced in kind. So staff's recommending approval of 2B24DT subject to the conditions that the applicant submit a profile of the proposed muntins showing the profiles to replicate the existing in thickness and depth. The framing width should be comparable to the existing window framing. The exterior trim and sills be repaired or replaced in kind, and then all masonry repair meet the National Park Service specifications.
Thank you, Lindsay. Would the applicant like to speak?
You were reading really fast, so I'm trying to understand what it was that you guys were proposing that we do. So
Please
just
state your name and address.
I'm Ida Randall, and I live at Unit 401 of 555 West Jackson in Southeastern Glass, and I'm here on behalf of the HOA. So one of the biggest things that we have going on is that we have a big assessment because we have to fix some structural columns, we have to replace all the lintels, we have to repoint the whole building. So we're going to be assessing everybody in the building quite a bit of money. And then our quote to replace each of these windows is around $9,000. Some of these owners on the far side own 8 windows. So you can imagine that we're looking at about $120,000 that these people would be selling out at one time with a great interest rate of 7%, probably on a HELOC. So I'm not going to be able to probably get a buy-in on the people that wrap around the top of the sides of the building. Well, quite a few people who are interested in doing it. So I have got the contractor to agree to paint the exterior frames of any windows that do not get replaced so that you wouldn't see as big of a difference. If we can do that, but there are some people whose windows might structurally fail in the lintel replacement or just structurally fail anyway because the metal is completely rusted through. So when they go to replace panes, you know, they can see brick through their structure. But I don't know if I can legally force everybody in the building to have to replace their windows. So one of my biggest concerns is, can we do this for the people that can afford to or need to? The alternative might be that some of those people whose windows are failing end up with boarded up windows while we're in a legal battle over how we do this. So I'm looking for a compromise.
Thank you for that explanation. This is one of those hard situations where you want to preserve the existing stuff. I know this building, when it was originally preserved, a lot of effort was put in to keep these steel framed windows. But of course, you want things to last and endure. So, does the board have any comments?
Just a question, we're only talking about the windows on the brick portion of the building, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that ground floor is 3.
Everybody else is already a storefront.
So it's the floor below that you can't see on the back side. You can see it from down below.
Yeah.
And then there's no picture, but it's down below. And then 4 and 5, 6 is the penthouse up there.
Yeah, so 3 is storefront, 4 is the first what you can see above Jackson, and then 5. And then on the back side of the building is 3 and 2.
And 1 is parking underneath, so.
2 no one sees except for maybe the homeless people. 3 is bridge level.
What's the safety issue with not replacing the windows? You're mentioning the panes could be loose and.
Well, we have glass that falls out right now. Right now, because the window is not structurally sound,
Right.
With heat variation,
Sure.
everybody's panes are breaking, and if they're double paned, like very thin double paned, so like for example on the outside of mine, I have big chunks of glass I can't get to. You know, that have broken out. So we have some people that have chunks of glass that in a windstorm might be dangerous to the people below.
Are you proposing a color to match the other storefront?
The only color that you can get in the windows that I've been looking at, desperately trying to find anybody who can give me, is that kind of brown black color. I asked if we could have it, you know, painted, and it doubles the price of the window, so it's cost preventive to do so. So I was asking the contractor, you know, can you go back to, you see how the cream, I'm sure they painted that when they probably renovated the building. The cream is now rusty brown and yucky, right? So what I was proposing is that we go to something like that dark brown, black bronze that kind of just goes away, but we'll still, the casement and all that will stay the same. That's part of our quote, that they're repairing all that and caulking and making sure that's all stable. But it's actually just the window itself, the insert, and there is no trim around it. It would just be to go back bronze black. And so anybody that wasn't replaced would be painted so that it would look the same. The only difference is that I can't find anybody that does the big square window that opens up.
The operable metal window.
Yeah. The lower window will be there and operable. And there are, I don't know if you can
But is
see.
there an existing operable window on the bottom?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we have two, but nobody really opens the upper one because you're afraid you can't close it.
Yeah.
I don't open my lower one because I have had it not been able to close for a while.
Well, we just don't use windows that we're used to, you know, like.
Well, the
when those were
younger
installed, it
people
was
in
very
my
efficient.
building might need ventilation.
Yeah.
They use it a little bit more.
What's the sense from your HOA of how many units, individuals are on board? Is it just you? Is it, like, what percentage of these windows do you estimate are likely to be,
Changed.
yeah,
The people up on 5 that wrap, so that's the top of the brick floor, they take water. So they're highly motivated.
okay,
The people below them did not seem like they were highly motivated. On the front side that faces Jackson, I think for sure 4, but not all of them. A couple of them are rental units, so it's really hard to get people motivated to,
spend more money.
yeah, it's a lot of money.
You can probably get some tax credits if you're putting energy efficient windows in, I believe.
That's true.
I mean, I think the real question is you have to have a viable strategy for replacing these windows. Otherwise, you're gonna compromise the integrity of the building eventually, because water's coming in, things are deteriorating.
The contractor thinks there might be some water coming in behind the back of the building, because we do have water coming down the back wall in the parking area.
This is what kind of structure does it have? Masonry.
Yeah, I believe it's concrete floors and structured with a course of brick on the outside and a course of brick on the inside.
It is concrete floors. And they're like 6-8 inches.
This was
At least it's
packaged,
not wood.
No,
It's falling apart.
this was packaged as a single renovation, you should be eligible for historic preservation tax credits, which are fairly significant. I don't know what the thresholds are on those for percentage of value or things like that. But it looks like there are a couple of possible tax credit avenues that can be explored to maybe entice the reluctant ones.
how much are those tax credits? Are they enough to offset $100,000 or
Well,
They can be up to $100,000.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
and or 30%, I think, last one I was involved with.
There's also the historical commission grants.
Since it is listed, it's a contributing structure already listed on the register, that's the biggest hurdle to accessing the funds or the tax credits.
And it's kind of a gateway building too.
Yeah.
I mean, especially
There's-
as that whole area gets redeveloped.
There's a downtown Knoxville Alliance facade grant, but they're very hesitant to give it to private owners. But it is up to $50,000, but no more than 20% of your project. But again, they're really hesitant to give it to them.
I think the sentiment is that if we had a preference, I don't want to speak for everybody, but that all of the windows would be replaced because the historic integrity in a kind of major way depends on the windows.
Yeah.
The historic guidelines are very clear that the building, windows, the operation, the material, pattern, all of that is significant to conveying the history of the building. So I think that Lindsay's comments are appropriate, and I would be happy to recommend approval if they were all gonna happen. But the piecemeal approach, I think, is kind of worrisome.
I'm wondering if.
However, sorry, I was just gonna say, however, you do need to have, a conditioned, structurally sound space, so you have to have some option, I feel like, to replace them.
If you could get like, maybe they could do like one facade at a time. Cause if you have like weird ones up here and weird, if it's all like, it's like be like a missing tooth, right? And a smile. But if you could do one side and then another side, I feel like that could maybe give you a staged process, but it doesn't sound like, it sounds like it's up to your owners, and your owners are like scattered about the building.
It'd be nice to
in their
see
preferences.
the layout, like the green, like these windows are probably AS, these are yellows, these people are on the fence, these are reds. They're never gonna, so you can kind of see what that would look like, since we also have to care what it looks like.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone who packages these sorts of things, the tax credit sorts of things, years ago I did them for residential renovations. But I've never done anything this scale, and I don't do that much anymore, but there must be other people who do.
Like an architecture firm that specializes in historic
Well,
renovation.
Too expensive.
Let's add another layer.
Or a well-heeled developer, you know. But no, I'm finding more of the individual.
It is another layer of cost, but done correctly, it will save you money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pays for itself.
And resale value, you know, you're not gonna be able to sell that thing if it's leaking. But, and it impacts your whole building if they're leaking. And I'm wondering if we approve you to change the windows, but only all at once, that'll give you the lever you need to make sure everybody does it.
If they're gonna purchase them individually, they can file for them on their individual tax returns.
So, I got a technical question. Since they have the choice, you're doing the whole tuck pointing of the exterior, you're doing all these other exterior improvements, but the windows are on their own. If somebody wanted to change their windows now, completely on their own, do they just come before this board with an application and say, I wanna do my 2 windows and, try to get it, does your homeowners association allow them to change them out on their own if they wish, or is it just part of this and then now all future?
They asked the HOA,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't know whether that was something that could be done or not, and it kind of came up that I was like, I bet you this has to get approved.
Right.
But yes, we had somebody who had a completely different double hung window solution, and I was like, oh, I don't think that's gonna match everybody, and I wouldn't put it past somebody
Right.
to just bring a contractor out there and start chopping away at a window, but they did ask. We don't have anything specifically in there. I mean, it's specifically in there that they own their window and they're responsible for it. It's not an HOA
Okay.
problem.
Yeah, I mean, they would have to come before this board to do it, but I just wondered if somebody could do that, if your association allowed that. Sounds like they do.
Yeah, we don't have anything in there that.
Right.
So whoever comes before the board first will set the precedent,
Right.
because the next person we wouldn't approve unless it matched the first one. And
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's what
They're
Two Light's
highly
a
motivated
notable company, they've been around, but
Yeah.
what's to say this company's around when somebody 20 years from now is ready to do their window and the panes are
Right.
different.
Right, I thought about that, like,
And
what's
it's
the.
completely different,
Even with
Well, and in the intervening years, it's not compliant with the downtown standard or the historic preservation standard, so.
And I kind of feel like this is not up to us. I mean, the standards are pretty straightforward about these sorts of things in the historic districts, and especially with structures like this. Like, I don't think we can't do less, right, than what we're.
So you're saying it would fall
guidelines allow.
under zoning purview then, because they have definite standards on fenestration and facade.
I'm not sure if it's zoning, but
Is it zoning or code?
Are you asking about the design standards in the DK zone?
Yes.
Yeah, but most of those have to do with the ground level storefronts and they relate to new construction, not rehab of existing buildings.
And the percent share of transparency, it doesn't get into the level of detail. That's not for.
But the historic district.
Yeah.
Is.
So the historic resources section of the downtown design guidelines, I think, would be the most applicable and most relevant sort of element here. And that is part of zoning and that it's referred to in the DK standards.
I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, if they came to us and said, hey, can we do this window here and this window here and this window here on a new structure, we would not be allowed.
Right.
The guiding principle Secretary of Interior standards, I think, for historic preservation. And I don't know if you have stumbled upon them yet, but that's the guideline that we keep kind of looking back at as it being a contributing structure on the National Register. They have a specific set of guidelines that, starts with what they prefer, which is all original fabric and material, and it works its way down. And so, but if you gotta replace this, do it like that. If you gotta replace that, do it like this. And then the bottom line is make sure it looks like it did and works like it did. So you just see, work your way back up on what can be afforded. And it sounds like what you have been doing,
Right, trying to find something that's.
Not $25,000 a window.
Well, but to that point, I think Lindsay's comments adequately cover that. It's just whether or not we can allow one at a time or a piecemeal approach versus an all at once approach.
Yes, I think that's the crux of our discussion here.
I wonder if we wouldn't consider possibly delaying a month and she could go back to the HOA, tell them where we're leaning, and be able to come back and demonstrate how many or how much buy-in they actually have. We can see that, but also explore those tax credits and see how that might influence people's choices to know what those resources are.
You could even prorate tax credits towards those that are maybe socioeconomically challenged or having some type of issue.
There's just a lot of money at once. If we weren't doing all the other stuff to our building, you know, it wouldn't be as painful.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying, it's packaged all together, that would be a substantial tax credit.
Okay.
So I'm saying include the repointing and the new column, include all of that in this tax credit application.
The only thing I would say to caution against using that as a decision maker is that the standards for the replacement windows would be pretty specific, and I think that the standards for the replacement windows would not necessarily be these. I think they would, to get the tax credit, and I'll defer to the architects that do this, I think they would be to receive the tax credit, might take a lot longer, but they would be required to replicate the exact operation of these windows. So they would have to go in and find those with the center. So I would just caution us about that element.
I think that the SHPO's office would be able to weigh in and give you a clear answer on that, before you made a final decision, but yeah.
What's the fewest number of windows that a resident has, do you know?
Two.
And you said they were 9,000 apiece, approximately?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Knox Heritage has a new program where they're giving $5,000 grants to individuals. So there's almost half of a window right there. You just go online, you can apply, you can use it for that.
Okay.
Grants take elbow grease and to be proactive and seek them out, but I think what we've pointed out to you is that I've heard at least 4 different potential sources for grants for those that really are hesitant to obviously improve the safety of their own building and their own unit, so it sounds like.
I think everybody wants them, I think everybody's, you know, it's just very, very expensive now with the interest rates.
The city's reservation grants are up for applications now too. So there are lots of, as you're saying, take somebody to coordinate all of this stuff.
Yeah, and
You have nothing else to
sounds
do.
like
I know, exactly. I'm already doing a lot of free work for my building.
Well, if your windows are dangerous, and they kill somebody, and it's like a piece of glass could kill someone, you'll be in a lot more trouble. You need to replace all of them.
Yeah.
I think.
What I really need is another hailstorm, and then we'll put it in insurance.
There you go. But to me, it's only the facades that face Broadway and Jackson would be required to be replaced all at once. I'm sure that's the ones where they have the most windows, but
Right.
the side on the other side facing railroad tracks.
I don't know, the interstate's very, first thing you see as you come into Knoxville.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would probably only be floor 2 that you wouldn't care about.
Right.
Okay.
That's below the bridge.
I would like to request that Matthew re-say what you said as a motion, if everybody feels comfortable with that.
Okay, so I make a motion that we postpone this, giving you the opportunity to go back to the HOA and let them know our general spirit, which is replacing them all at once. And also questions about the actual historical guidelines. But then also explore the tax savings and grants that exist that could be applied to replacing the windows.
So you think that the existing windows that we've gotten a quote for would not match the historical guidelines?
That's what we're being told, so I think.
I don't want to speak for the Park Service or the SHPO. I would just say what our design guideline says, that says replace duplicating design, operation, material, glass size, muntin arrangements, profiles, and trim would be something that the SHPO would look at, but they would, we being a local board have the capacity to look at the circumstances of the building, of what they're dealing with, and kind of vary from that, but the SHPO, if you're getting that finances, you would have to stick exactly to that. So I don't know, I just wanna caution against that as a guarantee.
I think that we have to, as a board, be careful we're trying to be helpful, but how this is funded is not our business.
Sure.
And so I think that we would encourage you to go down those paths to get it funded, because ultimately as a board, we want all of them to be replaced at once, if we could make that happen.
The funding doesn't affect our decision.
And this is outside my motion, but I would encourage you maybe just to check with Sanders Pace, who did the architecture, and see if they did any studies on replacing the windows, because they might have already done some.
We have checked with them and they didn't have the money, that wasn't in the budget. Neither was repointing the whole building, neither was a lot of the other things. I mean, I think they were budget crunched when they rehabbed the building.
Yeah.
The can was kicked down the street and now it's time to pay the piper.
Yeah.
Right, and so that's kind of what's going on here. And I mean, I think these windows were probably failing 13 years ago when they did this. But there was a limited budget.
Yeah, I remember. And the windows used to break. We would always just hear they never broke in our office, but they would break upstairs.
Right, they just, with temperature change, they break.
Yeah.
There are many people that have changed out 20 panes in their unit and only to have them as soon as it got cold.
Correct.
And then got warm, crack again, yeah. I mean, the brick retains a lot of heat. So what I was wondering is could you give me approval if I went back to them and said, okay, this window that I'm proposing, if you guys all do it, that we can have that window? Versus me trying to find someone, because I'm probably gonna have to get an ironwork person to fabricate that window so that it moves like that. When I've been checking around, everybody's like, I don't have anything like that.
Well,
Anything like that.
I don't think we're saying that center one has to.
I think to clarify, the operation of the center one or the bottom one, the reason it's relevant to this conversation is because of whether or not you hope to get grants and tax credits. It's not relevant to what this board can approve.
Right.
So a true restoration would get you in the ballpark of being able to get a grant or a tax credit. If you replace them with ones that aren't true restoration windows, then you could be out of the running to get that money.
Okay.
But it would still be okay, I think, in my opinion, to replace them with what you have proposed based on Lindsay's comments.
I know that fighting with steel windows is a perennial problem with downtown redevelopment. I know David Dewhurst came up with some strategies, but some of his included, like you're saying, getting a steel worker who would come in and literally.
Well, when I talked to him, he was like, if you get a solution, I
If
mean.
you find one.
Right.
Well, if it's
He's the one who
steel.
came up with the little double glazed things to stick in the existing frames.
I mean, you're not gonna change the physics that steel changes shape when it gets hot and cold. And so it's always gonna break glass eventually.
So I would, or you say, I think I would like to make a motion. Well, you've already made a motion, so we'd have to cancel yours, but I was thinking if we made
Yeah.
a motion to approve her staff recommendations, then she could move ahead and then.
And then if
Yeah,
I
you can
research it and find someone who can make us window, we can get grants, then we come back to you with a different thing. But if I could get everybody on board
Yes.
with this approved window,
Yes.
then that's what we replace with.
Well, and you don't, your approved window doesn't actually match.
Right.
Because your surface mounted buttons
So I have
are
to
not
get-
compatible.
So with the conditions of approval, just ask that you or your contractor provide some additional information showing these surface applied muntins.
Okay.
Because these installed on the, we talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
These installed on the whole Dobbs building don't adequately meet that thickness and profile. I think there's probably some ability, if they're manufacturing these surface applied muntins and rails, to get a little closer to that. And so what I would be asking is that the contractor submit a profile of that, just sort of showing how they compare.
Okay.
But and what about the sequencing of, it's not in this,
I think from us at this point,
What's
that
that?
should have to be everything.
So we're
What's
at,
that?
Can,
Yeah.
we
am I missing it?
we
I don't
don't,
know if
I
we can
don't know that
Sorry.
we can do that.
I mean,
I
I
don't think we
think that the, what's the Commerce building on Gay Street, 100 block, those were individual owners, and they kind of come through individually for replacements. It's got a hodgepodge, it's windows and things, so I think it's, granted, that building has been that way a while. This one has all consistent windows right now, so keeping consistency is great. But we do have individual owners that we're dealing with too. So I think trying to force them all to do it all at the same time is a hardship of some degree. So not everybody can afford to do them all at once. Might not be able to do it in the front end, I don't know.
Are you saying,
Exactly what I was thinking.
are you saying it's outside our legal purview?
It's no different from if there had been landslides.
But an HOA is owned, but buildings, but the buildings, that exterior skin is owned by the HOA. I mean, the windows themselves are, the way they wrote their HOA documents was funny. You know, your
Yeah, they
exterior
wrote it
windows.
intentionally so that they weren't on the hook for the windows when they were breaking all the time, I'm sure.
But
I mean, assessments happen. I live downtown, I'm in an HOA. They happen and they're part of your fiscal responsibility as an owner in that building to do your research and ask, you know, what's the condition of the building? There are a lot of questions you should ask, and if the assessment is out of line with what you can afford, you have an option to sell
So-
and move someplace.
Well, we
that's
got
more
somebody
affordable.
that's trying to sell them because of what we have going on with the assessment. Their deal fell through with the bank, the loan, they couldn't get a loan. So we've got to get our assessment done and get our work started before anybody can sell anything.
My heart goes out to you, but the financing, again, is not.
Quick question, what's the plan to do with the windows when they're removed? Are you, where are they gonna go?
Well, the contractor says he's got to sawzall them out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you said into that.
So he's charging us almost $3,000 to take a window out.
But the window itself, is you gonna smelt it, or is it?
They're
no, I
already
mean-
rusted through.
Yeah, okay. I was just thinking, if there was a craftsperson that wanted to take these windows, it's just a passion project and fix them up.
But he sounded like he was gonna
Okay.
saw them down the middle.
I'm not the chair, I'm just curious, do we have a motion, second, oh, I can't, where are we? Are we providing
Just
something?
floating.
Matthew, you had a motion.
But it did not get seconded, so.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Okay, which motion are you still holding on to that first motion of postponement?
Postpone, we're gonna
Yes.
go back, it'll give her a chance to kind of rally her building, get more information.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any more discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
I'll provide some follow-up information and guidance for you.
Thank
And give you some documentation and
Okay.
discuss with the board as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
I appreciate your
Yeah.
time.
Thank you.
Good luck herding cats.
Yes.
It's like a kindergarten class, actually. Thank you.
Okay, so now we have a new building, 409 West Church Avenue is coming before us a month ago. So this is 2C24 DT.
Hi, y'all can come in and feel free to sit kind of wherever.
Philip Walker had the best argument against that. He said, well, if they would have had those windows.
Yeah, it's probably best if
Where
it's
they would put them in.
Yeah.
Or you-
Yeah,
I'm sorry, your original one
It's a weird word.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a proposed new 9-story hotel building. It's proposed for an irregular site with frontage on the 400 block of West Church Avenue, the 600 block of Walnut Street, and the 600 block of Market Street. So I'll just run through a couple of the description of work. I'll let the applicant clarify. We also looked at this in the December meeting as a workshop. The site currently features a surface parking lot. The building will feature ground level commercial spaces, including 2 retail spaces on the corner of Walnut and Clinch, public space for the hotel fronting Church Avenue, and a cafe and restaurant space along Market Street. Floors 2 through 5 will contain structured parking, and 6 through 9 will feature a hotel. The hotel spaces are recessed from the overall footprint of the parking garage below. They're inset approximately 14 to 16 feet on those west and south elevations. So the building features that structured parking on levels 2 through 5. The parking garage will be accessible from a two-way vehicular entrance off Market Street. It has a valet drop-off area with a ramp to those 4 levels of parking. There are at least 2 pedestrian access points on Walnut, 5 along Church, and 2 on Market Street. In terms of the design elements, this is a flat roof building clad in brick veneer on the 1st through 5th stories with fiber cement panels on the recessed hotel massing. The parking deck will be screened in a bronze perforated aluminum cladding. At the corner of Church and Walnut, you can see it here and see it in the rendering, that 5-story plinth will be clad in brick veneer and feature ground level transparency and then openings to the parking garage on levels 2 through 5. At the hotel levels, these corners feature angled parapets clad in fiber cement panels, and I'll go through the elevations as we talk through some of these staff comments. Some of the comments says proposed for a surface parking lot. The block itself features several historic brick masonry buildings, including the YWCA, the general building, and it's across the street from the mid-century Walnut building. These blocks have heavy pedestrian activity, and this design will continue to engage the streetscape via public and commercial space on all 3 elevations. The parking garage meets the downtown design guidelines. As the 2nd through 4th stories don't contain brick walls, they break up this massing with the aluminum perforated panels with angled designs and the brick clad piers between. The design allows for commercial uses on the ground floor and hotel space above. The site plan includes only 1 curb cut with access to the garage along Walnut Street that meets the design guidelines for pedestrian safety. The final site plan should meet all city engineering standards related to the structured parking area and any site distance guidelines. In terms of some other design guidelines, the building maintains that pedestrian scaled environment on each of the street facing elevations with evenly spaced transparency. It also divides the larger building with 3 uses into quote modules similar in scale to traditional downtown buildings. There's a recognizable sort of base, middle, and top on the exposed elevations. The design on the Market Street elevation, which I'll show in the rendering here, it incorporates a step back from the street facing facade on the Market Street elevation. The zoning code requires that step back above the 3rd story and below the 7th. The design review board has the capacity to vary this dimensional standard, provided it meets the design guidelines. Here it's at that 2nd story. So in the opinion of staff, the step back at the 2nd story allows the elevation to engage the streetscape along Market. It creates modules similar in scale, and the step back and patio will be generally aligned with that step back on that adjacent buildings. Overall, the design meets the guidelines for building materials, for using complementary materials and elements next to historic buildings. It incorporates that brick in multiple colors, which will complement the masonry elements on adjacent buildings. The perforated aluminum cladding is unique to downtown, but it will obscure the parking garage while creating some visual interest. And then the contemporary materials are recessed on the upper floor levels and less visible from the street. Both the code and the design guidelines recommend a consistent rhythm of openings, windows, doorways, and entries. This is achieved on all elevations with a consistent pattern of clear glass storefront systems and entrances that are proportionate to the building's height and width. The application doesn't include details on sign placement, design, and lighting. That would be permitted separately, so signage should be submitted to the DRB in a separate package. So staff's recommending approval of 2C24DT subject to the following conditions: that the final drawings meet all relevant aspects of the city zoning code, including the ground level awnings and lighting provided. The final drawings meet city engineering standards, and the sign package be submitted to the DRB for review.
Thank you, Lindsay. Would you like to add to what Lindsay had to say?
Yeah, so I know we came in for the workshop in December, and
Please state your name.
oh, sorry, my name is Hitesh Patel with Elevate Architecture Studio. We did come in December for the design review board workshop and discuss the exterior design. I think some of the comments and feedback that we took away from the meeting back in December was potentially opening up that corner along Church and Walnut Street, which we've tried to do and incorporate a little bit more opening and eliminate some of the heavy massing. And then in conversation with the brand is in favor of the design direction, how we've complemented kind of the city requirements. There are only things were just to highlight some of the tempo entrances and differentiate the entrances for the hotel versus the cafe and some of the other retail spaces, which is what we've incorporated on Church Street as well as Walnut Street. So we've got two different kind of entrance, though they're connected inside the hotel. The Bluestone Lane Cafe as well as the Tempo have got two designated entrances for each. In regards to overall planning, we've worked with the brand and kind of talking about how the space internally is going to lay out, and a lot of the most of our public area is still going to be primarily focused off Church Street. We've got where that cut the entrance off of Church is, there'll be a hotel bar at the lowest level. That'll complement the hotel use as well as create more pedestrian activity. The retail space is still being proposed for the corner of Church and Walnut Street as well.
Thank you. Does the board have any comments or questions?
I have a clarifying question. On the facades where you see just smooth white, what are those materials?
So the smooth white is a fiber cement panel with a reveal system. I've also brought all my material samples in case you would like to see those, just for examples. But it would be a smooth fiber cement panel. So the idea is that it would be more of a dull finish and nothing too metallic or shiny, anything like that.
The lower level is a white brick, I believe.
Correct.
Yes. So
Yeah.
the fiber cement is all in the upper
Correct.
floors and the Market Street face that's above the bar.
Yeah, so everything at the pedestrian scale is primarily all brick, except for maybe just right at the entrance locations. We've got some fiber cement, but everything at the pedestrian scale is all primarily brick.
And they have some kind of aluminum reglet sort of
Correct.
divider.
I like what they've done with the facade on the parking garage. It reminds me of Rich's department store.
Yeah. Under the old parking garage across
Yeah.
the street.
Yeah.
I like that y'all opened up that corner. I know that was one of our biggest concerns, and I saw it got a little press before the meeting, and I said, look, they opened up the corner.
We should definitely challenge our structural engineers to come out.
Yeah, that how you handled your shear there. The only comment came from the other staff, the design center, but mine was the notion of possibly putting a rail that makes it look like those are balconies for the hotel at the top. If they can't actually be balconies, it would be neat to liven the space up with the hotel people being able to actually come out on that balcony and peer down and all of that. But if it can't be done due to materials or roofing or just scale, if there was something that would make the pedestrian keep, there's people up there. So there's people. It's not just cars. There's people too. Because of the hotel being set back, you won't really perceive that there are people in this building from the street. And that was the only comment that came from our group.
Sure, we can do that.
I don't think this is really the purview of our board, but I do have a concern that white or light colored fiber cement does tend to get really dingy and moldy. And so I have some concerns about access and cleaning and that kind of thing. Looks great in the rendering, and I think that, if it always looked like that, that would be great. But you see on other buildings around town that have that material that it kind of doesn't age well. So I'm putting that out there, but I don't know that it's a decision-making point, a concern.
I'm sure you care about the long-term maintenance and cleaning as well, so I'm sure you have a plan for that.
Right.
Well, I think not only, I'm sure ownership would be concerned about that, but also the brand's gonna be concerned about that, right? Especially being one of their, Tempo is more of a kind of upscale, one of their lifestyle brands that just got released into the market with only 2 being open nationwide. So I think there's gonna be a lot of eyes on it, not only from our end, but also Hilton's end as well, to make sure it's maintained.
Motivation to keep it clean.
Yeah.
Any concern from the neighbors with blocking their view?
That's a bank on the other side.
Yeah, it's a bank. We haven't heard any feedback from anyone about that.
Just curious.
Yeah, the bank's just on, I think, the 14th floor.
I have a question. So I see in the rendering, so you've got ballet kind of inside, but then there's an entrance kind of on that. So that would be Market. Yeah, Market. Is there any? I guess no, on Church. The entrance there on Church. Is there any valet plans for that area, or would that impact the traffic flow, pedestrian kind of experience there?
I think because we pushed the access gate internally further up, the idea is that all Uber vehicular drop off would occur internally inside of the parking deck on the lowest level. And we've got almost 3 entry points into the hotel, one from the parking deck side, one from Church, one from Market. So we envision Church and Market to be more primarily driven with pedestrian activity, and then all the vehicular would be oriented through the parking garage. And I think the goal would also be to make sure our address aligns with Walnut Street. So then if Ubers and stuff get put in, then they can, all the vehicular traffic gets oriented to Walnut Street.
Yeah, there's no vehicle entrance off of Market, so.
Correct.
Could you do the 4th floor setbacks on these elevations? Was that because of zoning regulation or because you thought that was the right design choice?
Zoning regulations. I believe the zoning calls between 3rd and 7th floor, we have to have a 10-foot step back.
Well, if we can vary that, I would like to vary that so that you can push that out. So if it wasn't the garage there and that there, then I think it would look correct, but I think it would look more correct if it came out closer.
We wanted it that quick.
I think I think our preference was originally do it, but we were complying with the UKG guidelines.
It is a zoning ordinance on the 4th floor that you have to step back in that zone.
Yeah.
Structure may determine how far they wind up doing it.
It was, that's exactly what it was, because we're aligning our structural grid with the how parking aligns on the deck, so that's why it's pushed back.
There's a minimum setback.
Well, and I agree, like, you gotta worry about, light hitting the streets, but that streetscape for that height of the building, I think it'll be fine. Push it forward.
Got a question, can you go to the floor plan, the first floor? Let's see, gosh, this one, you're there.
Oh, sorry.
At the workshop, there was like a wall here.
Mm-hmm.
Is this gonna be like this? Oh, it says admin office, okay, so this is office open, okay. The other plan I was looking at didn't have
That's
it.
actually changed again. We just had another call with Hilton. It's actually Bluestone Lane is now further down, encapsulated a little bit further. And this is just gonna be primarily now an entrance just for the hotel. And there won't be any office or anything, but it'll be a main thoroughfare, pedestrian access to get from guests from, not only from the lounge on the 2nd floor, but also from Market Street. So this has also been kind of shifted down and just now kind
Okay,
of
yeah.
public passage.
Well, I mean, I mentioned this in the workshop, but it sounds like you're keeping the same amount of transparency and or like public tenant space. You put all the trash and fire and all that in the alley there, so, that's I like that, what you got there. I just wanted to make sure that wasn't becoming like, fire pump room.
No.
Or something.
No, I think because we have the alley in the back, goal is everything off that alley.
But most of your foot traffic will come off Market, I think, because you'll be coming from Gay Street or Market Square.
Yeah, so that's why we wanted to put the cafe on that side, orient the cafe towards Market Street.
I like that little 2nd story roof deck. I think that'll really engage that portion of the street, pull people that way.
I have one other question. I think the workshop we talked about, I hope in your little bag, you've got the metal panel.
Function?
Yeah, no, we talked a lot about that. It's just so big, and I'm wondering, like, those panels are huge. I didn't know if they were,
so we were,
are they steel, aluminum, painted? What kind of finish and how they're really attached and all that? Like a little more detail around it,
Yeah, so we've been looking at a couple of different manufacturers for that. I do have some samples here.
No, you were on my tape.
So This is something to look at, it's called cane mail. This is more of a metal mesh system. And then we got a couple different examples of different kinds of mesh that were basically, it's all metal. It'd be either it'd be a kind of a dark bronze or bronze colored aluminum or metal. And then we're still working out the details. We've already talked to, we do have a GC on board, and part of our conversation from the DRB or from the workshop was making sure we maintain those projections and whatnot. So we've talked to him about different manufacturers and stuff, and I can pass this around if that's like.
I was curious, did you choose the bronze because that's one of the tempo's color pattern requirements, or is?
No, we're just trying to do something a little bit more, earth tone neutral palette for this one. It's not necessarily dictated by tempo or anything like that for this.
It's not like at all. That's not what I'm picturing. That's crazy.
Well, you can imagine a
Huge, like
a little far away.
is it reflective? Like from the sun? What's that bronzy one?
The angled pieces are made out of this?
They will be, yeah, so they'll be panelized and they'll be able to kind of,
And they're like,
yeah.
pretty
We've talked to,
shallow,
Like a
pretty
perforated
shiny.
aluminum
it's like a
panel or
perforated
something
aluminum, yeah.
instead of a wire mesh.
Sorry to be the maintenance buzzkill, but like, just like stuff get stuck in here, bugs, dirt clobbers, bees. I don't know. Sorry, I work in a lot of parks. It's like-
Good question. I think those can also probably vary in terms of scale and depth.
Yeah.
And maybe reasons like
Yeah, I think it looks awesome.
Yeah, I like the more muted ones. I want a lot of like light coming, you
Something
know,
you buy.
the daylight when you're walking around. And you got to put on your sunglasses to look.
Yeah. I like how it shows up in the rendering.
Yeah, I like the rendering. I
I
like
like Corton color.
I didn't know that was a.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
we're
like
the
chain mail.
Renaissance festival.
This is plastic though. Well, this, I don't know if the real thing would be, but.
Yeah.
Well, as we pass that around, are there any more comments or questions?
I mean, I guess I just, I just wish I had more detail on this guy,
This is such a big.
It's such a huge part of this project.
Well, I think about them in blocking garages, and I'm glad that you're doing something like
Yeah,
this.
no, I completely agree.
Other parking garages have done anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great.
So you're saying, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, I'm just asking for clarification, you're saying something's better than nothing?
No, I'm not saying that. I do want more information, but I just want them to be encouraged.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
You're saying,
We're not trying to.
we're appreciative, like,
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like signage. Could,
Yeah,
could we?
part of it.
I do think you're right in that this is a significant portion of the elevation. We maybe need to know more about it. Could we, let them move ahead and have them come back to that portion?
I'd make a motion to approve for staff recommendations on the project with the caveat that they need to come back and with formal direction on which screen they're going with and how it's, attached to the building, basically. Like the real product,
Yeah, and I think we'll have a better
But that should
idea
give you
of that.
enough,
Yeah.
hopefully that gives you enough, like, hey, the general tone of the project is fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's our next step is to kind of incorporate more of those detailed elements. Right now we're more in SD level, and then once we get to DDs, we'll be able to kind of hone in on exactly the system and how the attachments are recorded.
I would like to make a friendly amendment to yours to allow them to vary the setback of the top.
I would not feel, and I would just speak for our law department not to do that, or for Christina who's here. I would not think that it's appropriate for the design review board to vary something in the zoning code without a set element there. So we can't just say we vary it to be whatever.
Without a set element.
Like they need to have it, there would need to be a measurement and actually something there.
We would need to see the design.
We need to see the
The
design.
board needs to see the design to approve that.
Yeah, we can't just,
And there's no notice of that either, variance.
well, that's a separate thing.
That's separate.
Yeah.
But I would not feel comfortable with that. And I don't think Christina would either.
they choose to go a direction, they should bring it back.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel comfortable, putting that amendment in for, being aligned to the front, but if you don't, that's fine.
I'd rather keep the motion, but I think the applicant's hearing that if they wanna bring back another option, it would be entertainable. So, but I mean, I'd rather keep it the way it is and give them direction to move forward if they feel the way.
I do have a comment, and this is like totally a different direction than what we're talking about right now. But if you're viewing one of the renderings that's not shown is if you're viewing this from Union Avenue. So this is gonna extend above the YWCA. I'm curious to know how, yes, that's one right here. So that far right portion with the large swath of no windows, that's gonna be clearly visible from Union.
Oh, heading to Market Square.
Yeah, if you're
It's on your
walking.
right
Yeah.
and you're walking. Yeah, that's a good point.
That.
It'll be on that's a Walnut side, right?
Walnut, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Walnut and
Church.
Union. He's talking about you're at the top of the hill and you're looking,
Yeah,
I know
you're-
exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like right
Right by the restaurant.
right
JC.
next to JC
Yeah.
from that angle.
You're
You'll see a
heading
large portion of this side of the building from.
He's got it up
It
on
would
the,
be behind that building.
I guess what he's trying to say is that's in our purview is from the pedestrian perspective of your building on all sides. And if this is something that we can see a few blocks away, maybe again, there's something
Right.
to be done other than it's just big.
Yeah, I think we would be continuing the materiality around the side of
Right.
the building, especially for the hotel component, right?
Maybe you can show that like on the next.
Yeah, like a view of that perhaps. Yeah, we can, I think we're focused primarily on the three
Sure.
frontages for the design review board, but I understand I don't think we would
She's talking
necessarily.
about specifically, like on his drawing.
On his drawing,
You're concerned with the one next to the window, is that part of the parking garage, part of the?
right,
that's
yeah,
like the
so
service core or something?
I guess it would be the right side of this, kind of those four top areas. That's, I feel like that's gonna just be highly visible from, if you're coming from Union down.
Yeah, he showed like all three sides, but the one you
But-
didn't is also viewable from when you're coming down.
Right, yes,
The
that's.
hill.
I think all the
From a
existing
further,
buildings there
yes, I
are-
see, yeah.
But if you're even right here, you're gonna be
The
seeing.
existing buildings on Clinch are gonna block the view of the garage. So what you'll see coming down the hill from Union is gonna be the hotel part,
Which would be the same materiality.
coming up
Yeah.
above the existing buildings on Clinch. When you're on Clinch, you probably won't see it at all, because of the setback.
Sure.
Because Jared, when you mentioned that, I started thinking about the Market Street side and how Banky's building, or what is it now? US Bank building.
Yeah.
It sets back so far, the tower sets back so far. And so you'll see the side of the building quite a bit on that.
Yeah.
And I saw that you have bedrooms that have the windows facing forward, and then the windows that you have there are in the hallway. I don't know, I guess how wide is that space between the windows where the hallway is to the front of the building? Is that like, I guess how deep is it? I guess 27 feet, about 30 feet wide there without any change.
I really liked the three sides of the building that are shown in the renderings. I think my concern is that if you're gonna be getting a lot of traffic from Market Square, from Union, and visually you're gonna see a lot of that side of the building, and there's, I don't know.
Yeah, there are three garages on that corner. The reason why it's a popular corner is people are exiting all three garages. Like if you sit there on a Friday night, not that I've ever done that. You'll be surprised at how many foot traffic go by there. So even out of concern for your design from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I
chance
think,
to-
so what I'm
to do that.
understanding is making sure that we have materiality that's continuing on the
Yes.
side, which
Yeah.
would be a goal anyways of
Yeah.
ours. I know it may not be replicated here well
Sure.
yet in this elevation, but we wouldn't necessarily wanna terminate anything at that corner where the alley is,
Right.
right? So if we've got brick at the ground floor, we've got some transitions, we're gonna wanna make sure we're bringing that back. Now, whether or not it continues all the way across the garage, probably not, but I think we're at least anticipating it to be coming back here, and I think in our rendering, we're showing a portion of this from Market already coming back.
Okay.
And then for the upper floors, we'd be designating that as the same material that's on the front with that fiber cement panel with the reveal system. We'd be doing something very similar to that.
So what's the material on the far right of the kind of the darker gray?
This darker gray?
Yeah.
I need to look at our rendering side. So this part.
Sorry, do you want the rendering?
Yeah, I can pull up the rendering. So this would be part of this brick piece would be transitioning back, and this is this is the fiber cement panel. So we want to make sure that's returned as well on the side of the building.
Yeah. Also, I mean, if you do come back and show us more renderings, it would be great to see the rendering from the streetscape of kind of where that rendering is, but at the street level, and then that way we'll be able to see that that tower will be almost entirely hidden by that garage.
Yeah.
Are you talking about specifically from this corner here?
No, from, like, if you just went down to street level from that image right there,
Uh-huh.
and we're standing on the sidewalk, as if you were a pedestrian. With that setback, it's gonna be all garage.
Oh, right.
Which, you know, it's a nice garage. Anyway,
Yeah,
so we've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we want the modifications, anybody? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
That State Street Marriott garage has a screen, but it's not as nice as this. And I think just the way that rendering is, it makes that garage look bigger. Once the tower goes above it, I think it'll be proportional.
Yeah.
I think my only question would be, like, let's say if we're looking at this structure and it's better lines that we are wanting to take your recommendation and push that facade closer to flush it out with Church and Walnut. Is there like a variance that we have to go in for, anything like that? Okay, it would just have to come back to the DRB, to the board.
Just like there's no rezone, just like on the Market Street side, bring it down to the one level instead of three.
Got it, okay. Alright, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he touched to your point, like, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud, Mike, like, if they do something different, I'm sort of viewing that as like a change, you know, not necessarily new application, but change to come back for approval sort of thing.
Yeah, we would be looking at the modification.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because it may change like a bunch of other things,
Yeah.
and you know, it's not just that one thing. So I'm not saying it's a new application formally, but there's a lot to look at.
Yeah, definitely.
I would think.
Yeah, we'll take a look.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, you have those back?
All that, yeah.
You gotta get some toothbrushes too.
Alright, thank you. Alright, guys.
Alright, thank you.
We're not done yet. Workshop. So I will formally close the meeting. Thanks everybody for all your hard work. And we will have, we'll just go ahead and roll into the workshop.
Yeah.
I do have to leave in like 5 minutes, but I'm gonna stay for 5 minutes of workshop.
Cool.
Alright, so while they're going in, this looks like it's a really interesting application of the new missing middle. Is that correct?
Yes.
Lindsay was so instrumental in pushing through. Congratulations on the first one.
Yeah. Don't let me.
We have 3 workshops.
It's great.
No.
This is
just
all the
one.
same thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, it's kind of one extended title, and there's 2 street frontages, so that's why it says Little Springs in Muddy Place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seems like Logan's thing was almost a missing middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a
I mean, this is just like the big person.
Yeah, that one on Central I think would really, it's just, so I can give, I'll give I'm gonna, so I'll give a real quick like middle housing kind of primer while we talk about that one on Central, and then I'm just gonna let our applicants kind of guide us through and just gather some input. So the middle housing standards are a new set of zoning amendments that City Council approved in early February, and the intent is basically house scale buildings with additional units in neighborhoods that are walkable and have the infrastructure to support this. So not just single family housing or multi-unit housing, it's duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes. So in a particular land use area, this is the TDR, the traditional neighborhood residential land use area. It's a lot of our historic and older neighborhoods in the central city. Zoning districts are in 2, 3, and 4. Now there's a little bit more nuance in terms of these housing forms. So where this property, well, this one's zoned RN4, but where this property may have had, a little bit less nuance in terms of multifamily housing and townhouses or single family houses, it now has the capacity to work with these new zoning standards. So I provided those to you guys. I think right now in the realm of the design review board's workshop, I think it's better and better use of y'all's time to give input on the design and the design guidelines. I can provide input on the design standards and I'll work with the architects and developers on the middle housing side of it too. But I think right now it's just like you guys thinking about these in terms of the infill guidelines and how it meets the neighborhood context and everything will be great. So yeah, you guys want to go for it?
Yeah, so I'm Jared Huder with Ally Architecture. We're based out of Chattanooga. And as she kind of mentioned, for us, this has been a little bit of a challenging project because we started working on it right when the missing middle was being discussed, and it was a whole discussion of how do we approach this, because we're on infill, we of course have the townhome element to it, and the missing middle. So this first sheet, some of the preliminary zoning considerations are now kind of outdated because of the changes that missing middle provided. One of which is, with missing middle, it allowed us to get up to 7 units on the site, which you can see. And I think we would have only been able to do, 5 before possibly. So some things like that has been a bit outdated on this. But yeah, we're on a corner site, Whittle Springs and Money Place. We were trying to, we see it as a bit of a transitional site, addressing the more commercial district that you see obviously to the right, and then the residential, low single-family residential to the left of the screen on Money Place. We tried to address those with 2 different kind of building masses, the one facing Whittle and the one facing Money Place. And yeah, we've done that through, of course, you can see some of the commercial on Washington and Whittle as you get to the intersection of Whittle and Washington Pike, which is a pretty loud intersection. Some larger buildings up that way, and then the obvious change in context as you start going down Money Place with those smaller residential units, most of which do have a porch or carport situation. And then this would be on our side of Money Place. You have kind of more of a ranch style house, and then the others are similar. But these across the street are all very similar. That's most of the context. This is, our site plan. The 4 units facing Whittle Springs are with their stoops. And then we have 3 units facing Money Place with porches. They're not a full 8-foot porch, so I can't remember if it's infill or missing middle that mentions that, but I guess we'll call it a generous stoop. And on those, and of course with the setbacks for the RN4, we get pretty large front yards or setbacks on building B and building A. And then we have parking in the rear off of the public alley that will need to be improved. It's currently just overgrown, but we would have that improved to access the parking off the alley. We have 1 parking spot per unit. What else? Each unit has a front and back door, so they can access the parking from the rear. And then, these are we also have some renderings at the end that kind of explain a little bit better, but you can kind of see the basic elevations. We have a masonry base right now proposed with lap siding, a mixture of fixed and double hung windows, and of course gabled roofs and things. And so, you know, this is our schematic design, and we wanted to come and get your guys' input as we are, you know, moving forward in the process. We really do, you know, as it is a transitional area, and so kind of dealing with both scales of both streets, trying to make sure that we're respecting those kind of areas. Of course, Whittle Springs here, this would be the Whittle Springs elevation, as well as both of these. It's a pretty busy and loud street there, but we felt like these are a little taller. Massing's a little larger, and then if you go to this being the Money Place view, these would the three facing Money Place kind of step down the hill with their porches, and then you get the end elevation of the larger units there on the corner.
I have one quick possible code question. He was talking about improving the alley. It seems to be a dead-end alley. We've had people be prevented from using dead-end alleys before.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's something that can be done.
Well, it doesn't appear that the alley's really there. Is it just paper alley right now? I know it looked like there was some pavement, at least from Little Springs, but I'm not sure if it went all the way through.
I believe there, if I remember correctly, there is a curb cut there at the entrance of the alley, but then beyond that, it's just grown up.
Yeah, so the alley might have to, you'd want to check with city engineering what they would require
Okay.
for that construction within the public alley.
Okay.
So it might need to be built to public alley standard, where that is, and then transition to the parking lot from the public alley. Definitely talk to them what they'll want to see there. I guess you're not really, if there's no alley there now, what you're building is could be used as a turnaround too. Might have to have well access.
You're likely gonna have two-way traffic coming in and out of there as people are.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I don't, again, you're probably gonna need to reach out to engineering and see what they're gonna need.
Yeah,
Okay.
you might want to look at closing it, talk to the other neighbors on that street and see if that's.
Would they allow a driveway?
Yeah.
Just a driveway? I mean, that would be a drive to our property.
The alley won't, the neighbors won't allow the alley to be closed.
No.
We've tried that already.
Okay. Good to know.
Lindsay, I have a question. So I know with the middle housing, that kind of there were some things with parking requirements that were adjusted. So there's one parking space per unit currently here. Either of these streets, if they're not necessarily like street parking, I don't know. I'm just trying to think about if you're having people over, where are people gonna park?
Very two-car.
So the
Yeah.
parking standards, so first off, no off-street vehicle parking is required within a quarter of a mile of a transit route. So I have not verified the quarter of a mile. Have you guys, I would assume.
Washington Pike is.
Yeah, and so technically they don't have to provide parking at all.
Okay.
Um,
Interesting.
How
So
about that?
they,
Change
so this, having one space per unit is, you know, within the standards of the parking. In terms of the other standards, it's, you know, if there's, well, it says where there's an operable alley present, that alley must serve as the access. They're building out this alley, that kind of depends. So the placement does meet those standards, and then, you know, it's kind of, the thinking here is it's the developer and the builder's sort of opportunity to look at the street, and, you know, they obviously can provide parking. This is already an illustration that people are going to provide parking if they can on the
Right.
site, and then, you know, people have the opportunity to park on the street if not. And Money Place, I will say, I live around here, so Money Place could be parked on.
Okay.
That's unprofessional opinion, but Money Place could be
Yeah.
parked on.
Yeah.
What is the ownership structure of these? Is it one development that has a management, or is it
So they will be sold as townhomes, so they'll
Okay.
individually owned, but there will be an HOA of some type that manages the property and the common areas.
Okay.
So, yeah, like landscaping and the paving and that kind of thing.
Lindsay, can you go back to the elevation renderings? The renderings? Yeah. Where are you gonna put the gutters and the downspouts?
So we've done, we have broad gutters internally here and drop downspouts through the canopy over the door before. We have actually, our Fourth and Gill project has that exact detail.
I thought, yeah, I remember that project and that was the answer on that one too.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I know they don't look good on a rendering, I understand.
Well, and this is schematic.
Yeah.
So we don't, yeah.
Those roofs are tricky, the way that they're draining out into those courtyards.
Yeah, and then, for example, these units would have crickets that you would, at this level, you might be able to begin to see to bring the water out, but that's not modeled in it yet.
Right.
So the porches, the front porches, are you saying that you're gonna increase that depth, or are you thinking it's just a stoop?
Yeah, it's a big stoop is the way we'd like to keep it, just because of the square footage and our setbacks and everything. What's up?
Sorry, go ahead.
That was the plan. Really what we're doing is using the second floor to come over to kind of create that porch. So it's within the building footprint, which is kind of set the depth of those.
I mean, in the guidelines, it's 8 feet. Right?
So the design guidelines for 8 feet are in that element that are for single family houses.
Yeah.
And then, we do talk about that and those general proportions in relation to multi-unit housing. The multi-unit housing does not have a specific foot. So for example, the Oswald Street ones that just got approved, those had more of a stoop element to that. I think here we're just looking at it being, proportionate, using those porches and breaks in the front facade that are, mimic the look of older houses when moving down the block. So there's not a specific foot measurement for porches and the guidelines for the multi-unit.
And the houses on Money Place, with the exception of 2335 and the one at the corner 2337, 2335 is actually one I drew. The rest of them all just have stoops. Those two have standard porches and are more like infill houses that we've done other places, but the rest of the houses on Money Place are all, many of them are inset stoops that are under the main primary roof line, much like what they're proposing here.
And what's that depth?
It's like 4 feet.
4 feet.
I think these are probably 6 foot, which, I know the Rancher is a 6 foot typical ranch porch, but
It's 4 to 5 feet. It's
Yeah.
not 6.
The actual porches, I believe, aren't they at an angle?
Well, they're at an angle, so
Right.
a portion of them is
Yeah.
longer but not full depth.
Yeah, I mean, whenever we're developing something, we always, if we're gonna have a front porch, we want that to be not just a decorative front porch, but something you can actually sit on. So it's good to make sure that there's enough room to have a chair and a table out there, something like that. That activates that street, which is really our purview, is to make sure that when people build and building, it interacts properly with the street and keeps everything, a neighborhood alive.
I like the strong tree game, and I hope it makes it to the, I'm a tree lover.
Yeah.
So you have them, I notice, all over.
Yes.
So I hope they make it.
I do think that they're good.
I was just gonna ask about what are we applying, infill housing or missing middle, or how do these two work?
Yes.
together?
Well,
Yeah.
It was approved a few days ago.
Well, so these are two separate, there'll be two separate layers of review. This right now is the design review board looking at the infill housing guidelines. The middle housing standards are going to be a staff approval. I'm the point person on those as well, so that sort of helps with the facilitation of those. But that's a separate review that they go through to make sure that they meet these middle housing standards. It's kind of like the EN zoning district where there's review of new construction and addition. It's kind of the zoning aspect of it, and then they go get a permit. The middle housing standards are intended to be, adapted to multiple styles. They're not supposed to be prescriptive of a certain style, and they're all pretty general. And so there are design standards in there, and there are elements like the front facade must contain a porch or stoop, and then 3 of the following design elements. And then there are some just pretty basic things. So it can have a dormer, eave overhangs. The 8 feet in depth is referenced as a covered porch. So if some other, in general, like a duplex wanted to have a covered porch, that would be 8 feet in depth, and that counts as, 2 of the requirements, basically. Bay windows, articulated window and door trim, brick masonry composing at least 25% of the street-facing elevation. So they're real simple things, but things that are intended to align them with the houses in the neighborhood.
I noticed it had kind of the form-based prescriptions in there.
Yeah, yes, and that's just intended so that these do fit in with the single-family houses in the context. Yeah.
With those windows on the end, is that enough windows there on that top floor for our rules?
And that's the other thing with the middle housing standard. The principal use, well, that's a good question. The principal use standards still apply too. So they have to have those certain transparency levels. There's a lot of, and yeah, I had a question about.
There's a chance we missed an requirement with multiple layers.
Yeah, you get to be the guinea pig.
It's fine.
I had a question about what the treatment of this material. What's
So-
the thinking on this sort of massing?
Just trying to break up the facade some, and it's a design move from our standpoint of having like a flat panel versus the lap siding everywhere. It's a compositional thing. So we use it on a few of the other ones where we have. So this room, one of the things we try to do in a lot of the townhomes we design is provide. Not a lot of townhomes, you just get the straight on view, straight across the street, and we're always looking for opportunity to get the diagonal view down the sidewalk. So there's that relationship from a room. So these rooms you'll see. This is one room, and so they can see out a side window. So it kind of gives the room a bay window effect without paying for that. And so that's just kind of a compositional thing of tying those two things together, having the change in texture on the siding. And you see that if you go to the Money Place units, right there. These, because we angled them and they kind of these corners align, but each one is kind of at an angle, so it opens this corner for us to have view down Money Place. And we're doing that same thing with kind of flat trim, turning that corner. So that, just connecting those windows together.
Well, and like that elevation right there, at the lower one, you can see that you have this corner piece, and there's so much precedent for creating a great corner unit that, and this is just me talking from the workshop point of view, not necessarily infill housing, but I feel like you're missing an opportunity to make that end unit, that extra special unit, that interacts with the corner of those streets rather than just looking kind of toward the main street.
Right. I wondered about that too, because it is a really prominent corner in the sense that it's a lot of space between where your proposed building is and where the sidewalk is. But I could argue it both ways, that it's a really prominent corner and he wants to live with everybody looking at you right in there, if you're not in a downtown environment. Because this isn't quite an urban, cool downtown environment yet. And so so my point is, there's a lot of really nice landscaping there that fills that void, but then to Laura's point, if that doesn't make it, or if it's not well maintained, then that corner could be kind of a dud.
Yeah.
And so
you're right. You bring up a really it's a challenging, the townhomes in the R4 with the setbacks pushes us really far from the sidewalk, right? So we're used to being oftentimes right on the sidewalk. And then the transparencies in a unit that has two streets that it's facing, with the floor plan hasn't changed, right, internally. Finding the places to put a lot of glazing when you have like a stair going up on that wall or by, something like that. So, I mean, I totally agree that definitely another iteration of kind of looking at how to make that feel more like a front as well, would be we should work on. I mean, we tried with the masonry, changing the height of the masonry. We do that in a lot of our projects to kind of create interest. We really try to not just put masonry on the front of buildings because you get that front and back kind of thing, which we try to stay away from. But the transparency we could add.
I would maybe take a different approach and doll it up and charge more for it.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
That's what I,
Yeah, for that
I
corner
charge a
unit.
premium for it.
Yeah, that's the unit.
That's what I would have done.
You know, we were, so the corner was actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I was.
talking about Josh.
That's right. The corner to me was more of a community spot, was more of a way to wrap the folks coming down Whittle and to actually wrap it into money. And then, so an outdoor area, maybe an outdoor garden or a community garden or something there. There was actually, even if it was like a trellis or some benches or something there that would actually make it so that it's inviting you to wrap the corner rather than just stay along Whittle. That was the intent, and so.
We put too many bushes for that.
Yeah.
One point we had a low wall there too, but we pulled that out because we were worried about cost of like putting that in place. But okay.
Also, more of a community. We want it to be in the community. We don't want this to feel like it's its own separate, like gated community. More of something where it's more welcoming to wrap that corner.
So that corner, you're going downhill.
Right.
That's
but,
right.
But
Yeah.
balancing that with privacy for that end unit as well. So
Sure.
we'll take another step at that.
I think just from, again, like living around here, I think this right now is somewhat of a dead zone. There are some commercial businesses that are active, but then there are some buildings that are extremely underutilized or unutilized completely. And so, I love it. That's an old Weigel's. That was a Weigel's.
Yeah.
And it has like a butterfly roof
Yeah.
coming up. And I think this building was really cool too.
Can you make it bigger? I'm old.
Yeah, sorry, I know.
Oh, yeah, thank
So
you.
this was an old Weigel's that is a scary, I would never go there.
Scary Weigel's.
And that's, there's some commercial buildings, but I think just the benefit of this project is that engaging with the streetscape, having walkways to the sidewalk, just gonna bring more users and pedestrians. La Esperanza is there, that's active.
That's it.
And the elementary school.
And the elementary school, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder for this process, Lindsay, is there a process where some board members who aren't here tonight can make comments
Yeah,
before
so
they come again?
I actually, the board member that wasn't there in particular, that I think will have some comments, I did,
It's very
he
diplomatic.
has the flu, so he has the capacity right now. But I did say, because this is a workshop and not a formal application, I was like, if you wanna provide me some comments, I'm happy to pass those along. And I'll remind him when he doesn't have like a fever, so.
Behoove you to.
Get some more input from the other board members that aren't here for sure.
I like the way that it's oriented to the street, because if you look at the intersection, it's wonky as well. So like it's like a nice little touch to the context.
See, you mean
The way
the way
the way
angle
Washington
makes it a
Pike
little wonky,
and Whittle Springs
so
hit
it's-
each other,
Yeah.
it's kind of
Yeah.
an accidental nod to it.
Okay.
I agree with that. I like the discussion that was started about like making that corner some kind of amenity, whether it's I don't know what it is. I'm gonna stop there, but if it could be an amenity.
Well, I think
That
they're
would be great.
investing in this area and putting sort of garden in this area.
Yes.
Don't say more around me.
That's not bad.
Put a fire pit
Yeah.
There you go.
You know,
A lot of that,
Potable water fountain.
It's a good size for like a little dog park or
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
park of
like
some
a-
kind, but it's in a place that's not really wanting to be
Really
that.
green.
Pocket park.
Yeah, but it's like a pocket that's been turned into.
Easement, so you're not liable for other people tripping in it.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
one of the other things, when we put sidewalks going down Money, you know, for the first time ever, that's gonna add a lot to,
Yeah.
to that corner too. And then a lot of it does have to do, you know, Mike mentioned is, you know, a lot of it's gonna come down to city engineering. Because if city engineering won't allow us to come off the alley, then, you know, the access changes completely here. And I mean,
parking, so.
well, you don't, yeah, but, you know,
Yeah, apparently.
I know you don't have to have parking,
needs a
but
bar?
for, yeah. I-
Ability.
Yeah, I really do not want a driveway coming off Money Place.
Yeah.
You got some yard there to come down from Whittle Springs, but then will engineering allow it with its proximity to the
Yeah.
alley
Right.
cut and
Right.
intersection?
I mean, our thought was utilize the existing curb cut and come from behind. It makes the most sense.
I wonder if they'd let you, if the alley was too narrow because of two-way traffic, if they would let you, you know, use the alley plus add, you know, 10 feet or something, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, there's-
To improve the width of the alley to your drive. I don't know what they'll let you do, but.
There's room to do that going, towards Money Place. Be quite honest with you, that's my hope, but,
But
you know.
two-way traffic is allowed on alleys, is it not? I'm assuming, I mean, by nature,
Yeah, I mean,
they're all in
20
I
something.
think it depends
What's the
on the
rule? 20 feet wide minimum?
About how many
Well, you need like
bedrooms
18
again?
feet at least,
Did they
but
say?
20 feet
Like
probably.
You're making me build 20 feet.
The ones on Money Place, you ask about bedrooms, the ones on
Yeah,
Money.
like how many bedrooms
sorry.
total?
Ones on Money Place will be 1 bedrooms, and the ones on Will Springs are 2 bedrooms.
2 bedrooms, okay.
Yeah, we're trying to hit
So
we're
total
trying to hit
11.
an affordability price point.
Bedrooms.
Yeah. Yeah, the goal is to
11
be under,
bedrooms, 22 people.
yeah, the goal is to be under $300,000.
Okay.
Per unit.
Yes,
So Money doesn't have a curb right now, but
correct.
Whittle does.
Yes.
It's like,
That's the major.
How many square
and it's
feet?
far enough away from the intersection, I think, I don't know if the actual rule is,
The
but it
footprint's
looks like it is.
like 1,500 for the one bedrooms and 2,300
Well,
times two.
Yeah.
Okay.
3,000 and,
I mean, per unit.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Does anybody have other thoughts related to guidelines or?
Oh.
I don't think so. Does anybody else have any comments? It's almost 6:30.
What?
Are we?
Really? Imagine a camera.
Paying for the last one.
Yeah, the last one we got to skip.
Well, Lindsay promised we'd be out here before 7.
Yeah, cool.
There you go.
You're winning.
So I will follow up with you guys and we can talk about on the middle housing side. In general, I did a preliminary run through and I don't see a lot that gives me concerns with the standards, but we can talk about that process and stuff. And,
Okay.
you know, we don't have set go through infill, go do this. I think probably starting with the design review board is a good idea. I don't know, we can think on that. We don't have a requirement for one
Gotcha.
before the other
Okay.
yet. Also, the code is adopted tomorrow, so, you know, we're really working on all of them. But we've got a website up now though, and application and all that stuff available, so.
But it sounds like in general the right direction, the corner, addressing the corner, obviously engineering in the alley is a big issue.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
the absent person that is gonna have a lot to say.
Maybe not.
You got it. You got it. That's your list.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you guys.
Thanks for
Thanks for your
being here.
patience
Appreciate it.
too.